If feelings of pleasure result from certain kinds of behavior, then we need an environment, a society, that encourages that behavior. The utopian ideal is as old as history. In 19th century America, it found expression in perfectionist movements. Walden Two was a fictitious place. At Walden Two, members produced the minimum goods to support themselves without waste, profit, or pollution. They avoided competition by sharing their land, their possessions, and their children.
I was just real excited by it. I wanted to save the world and create Walden Twos, hundreds and thousands of them.
It felt like a more peaceful, sane, and useful environment than I was experiencing.
I was very impressed by the lifestyle that Skinner put out in his book, the egalitarian, social, economic, political systems.
The Twin Oaks community is a rural cooperative in central Virginia, sired by Walden Two, and the disillusionment of a handful of people who in 1967 turned to it as the blueprint for a better society. The casual visitor might well assume that this is just another of the many reactionary communes spawned by the turmoil of the 60s. On the surface, perhaps, but there are differences. Most of those communes have disintegrated. Twin Oaks has flourished. Membership has multiplied from 8 to 85. Ages embrace old age to infancy. Educations vary. Some stop short of a high school diploma. Others hold doctoral degrees. The community is self-supporting through its own industries and grows most of its own food. Their government, labor policy, and children's program all owe something to Walden Two. But is Skinner's design the secret to their success? Or have they discovered their own way of doing things? It's now 11 years since they began their experiment, and Nova thought Skinner might like to see for himself. So we invited him in the spring of '78 to visit Twin Oaks. Toward the end of Skinner's visit, members of the community gathered to talk things over with him.
We have a fairly heavy problem with people coming and only staying a year or so and then leaving. Yeah. It would be neat if we had techniques to keep ourselves here.
Well, it did something, I think. People ask, what is the survival value of art, music, and so on? And many people say it doesn't make any difference to a culture, but it makes a great difference in it because it prevents defection. You're suffering from defection, of course. People come and they don't find life here interesting enough to keep them on. I'm wondering about things you could do. For example, my wife and I belong to a little play reading group. Once a month we put on a play. It's just delightful. That must be an ideal kind of thing for a group of this kind, it seems to me. Do you do that? Do you put on plays?
Every planner's meeting's a play.
Here's a play right
But we do plays. We have folk dancing groups getting together. Most people who come to live here are reasonably clever, and they learn a job, and it's boring. And then they say, oh, I think I'll go do something else. And say, I don't want to be a plumber anymore. I want to be an electrician now. Now I'll be a planner for a while. Now I'll be this for a while. And as a consequence, nobody ever gets really skilled at anything.
You are coming from a level where intellectual skills are probably being wasted here. And if you start in making income from the production of intellectual things, like books and works of art and music and so on, you might find you could come out ahead that way. The other thing that I think that I sense missing out, you are conducting a terribly important experiment here, and unless you get some sense of that, I think, you do lose interest in it. But this has a terrific future. You don't appreciate what you're doing really here, and if you did, nobody would leave. This is the solution to the whole problem. I've always thought that I was doing the kind of thing that would advance a science of behavior, and from that there would be a spin-off which would be in the direction of making this kind of thing work more effectively. Now, I'm sure that the practical problems are much more difficult than I envisaged when I sat down and wrote a book. Well, I've got to experiment with your own lives. You can't get a grant from a Ford Foundation and run an experiment with people to see what social relations are like. The only way to do it is to get in there and do it yourself. And that's what you're doing. One of the nice things about a small community is that you can dispense with government in the ordinary sense. It's much better for you to keep each other behaving well and not stealing and all of that by just censure and commendation rather than having a policeman walking around here. You can dispense with that. There is nobody who stands around and reinforces you or you or you or you. There is no intervening agent. The life has been designed to be reinforcing. That's the thing, you see. That's what you have here.
That's our point.
I don't want contrived contingencies of reinforcement. I want the world to be so good. Everything you do is reinforced. The things you make are nice and you're glad you made them. The friends you have are nice and you're glad you have friends and so on. I think Twin Oaks is close to Walden Two in certain ways. An effort is made to induce people to behave in necessary ways. They maintain themselves, that they create the goods they consume, or at least they create some foreign exchange so they can buy the goods they need. They are very much concerned with good personal relationships. They are minimizing pollution of the environment, maximizing the good life rather than the destructive life which most people are now leading. This is all, I think, very important, and is done by arranging good reasons for behaving that way. I think this is very, very encouraging. This is as close to Walden Two as I had any right to expect.